Hey, what's going on, everybody? Today is March 5th at 10 a.m., and you are listening or watching the Daily AI Show live. We're happy to have you guys with us. And today we're talking about sort of a newer topic that we haven't talked about before, but that's IoT, or better known as more Internet of Things, better known as IoT, I guess would be the way to say that. And, obviously this is an AI show. We want to bring you guys all the ways that AI is impacting not only all of our lives, but especially when it comes to business. And I think there's just a lot going on in this space. And it was something that we wanted to bring up and kind of just bring a light to. Not that Internet of Things is new, not that AI is new, but as we're starting to see some of these technologies converge, and we're enabling us to make better predictive decisions off of the data that's coming off of these end devices, I think that's actually really cool. So we have Junmi, Andy, Beth, I'm Brian, and we'll see if anybody else pops in, but that's sort of when we want to start this conversation. Jimmy, you were kind of talking about stuff right before we went live. You're saying you're sort of focusing on one particular area. Do you want to kick things off?
Sure. Sorry. I wanted to focus when we talk about IoT and a little bit of a primer. So if you've ever had a smart device in your home, whether that be your lighting system or your appliances or anything like that, or your smart televisions, that all works on the Internet of Things, right? They're all interconnected, communicating with each other, sending signals and data back and forth. So that technology's been around for a while, like Brian said, but I wanted to focus on where we are positioned technologically wise with all of this new technologies coming out. So AI, IoT, we have massive data bandwidth with things like 5G, and we have provenance or ledger technologies like blockchain and things like that. And all of these technologies have come out in the last few years, or at least their point of convergence has come out in the last few years. And so they can all be interconnected. Some technologies are good in their own siloed fields and whatnot, but all of these, all like a big giant Venn diagram, they all have a point of synergy to work with each other to push forward our available uses. So just imagine you have the capabilities of AI in recognition, pattern recognition, LLMs with being able to improve their predictive analysis and things like that, and combined with your IoT device, right? So it takes the capabilities one step further. Now, for privacy and data integrity and things like that, you can use a technology, what they're calling a DLT, which is essentially a blockchain technology, which essentially marks all the data that's coming through to make sure that any communication that's happening is happening on that ledger, right? So that that this is a secure communication. Essentially, you can follow it along, and so with those kinds of technologies, it expands the capabilities in further. And so, for an example, you can have AI determining for like when you have a refrigerator, right? We've used this example in the past. You're running out of, and Brian, I think you said this, like you're running out of your container of rolled oats, your oatmeal.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And so your refrigerator knows how many servings of rolled oats you have left, because the AI has determined how what kind of unit size for any particular brand or container of rolled oats that you buy, right? Your buying behavior of a particular brand of rolled oats is that pattern is recognized, and then that's sent off to, let's say, make a purchase on your behalf from your refrigerator, saying, hey, my owner really loves this particular brand of rolled oats, and he's definitely going to want to make another order, so he's never out of rolled oats. So all of these technologies together work towards making sure that you always have your rolled oats.
Right.
For example. Yeah.
And
Yeah, I think it's a good example. And I think obviously when we think about the smart home and what you're talking about, we're going to see more and more of this just basically integrated. I've read about smart ovens that constantly evaluate temperature of, your lasagna dish or whatever that you might be baking, whatever the case is, maybe knows the ingredients, knows weights. And we've seen this with scales and things like that. Now we even have like lasers and things that I don't know, from the nutrition side have ever really, any of them have ever passed muster, but this idea that you can kind of just scan or laser through an apple and it will tell you the nutritional makeup of this apple and things like that. But these technologies are advancing and they're continuing. So I think we'll definitely see more in that area. But it's a good understanding of how, like you're saying, the AI is attached to the Internet of Things. And maybe that's what we didn't necessarily have as robust in the past. Is we had lots of data. That data was going to the snowflakes, the whatever your data lakes, your data warehouses, they were being combined and looked at on dashboards, executive level dashboards. So we're looking at our metrics, our KPIs, we're watching our gauges, and we're like, yeah, okay, I'm in the industrial thing and I'm watching 32 different gauges that are important in my industrial manufacturing, whatever. And I've got the data from every one of those gauges and I can combine that together and I can monitor that. That's nothing new. That's sort of an Internet of Things. But when you do layer on that side of AI, it seems like now we're not only are we able to ask human level questions because we're bringing in natural language processing that we see from the AI, but also like you said, Jimmy, I think it's the idea that these devices can now start interacting with each other and working outside the necessarily confines of it reporting just to a human. It's getting to the point of making corrections, preventative measures. You think about any company and how important, especially in manufacturing, preventative maintenance would be. And so you can imagine now, not only are they collecting the data at the point, so fire engine, right? Fire engine might in the future have 300 points of Internet of Things type things that are talking about what this fire engine on, and it may automatically schedule that fire engine to go to preventative maintenance because of the way things are happening on it, and that all gets scheduled together. And that's the AI that's not only coordinating on, hey, this engine needs to come out of service, but also what's the call volume, what's going on currently, what's the staffing levels, could this even happen today? And AI would be able to handle that situation. It's not just because in the old way, it would just be pull the engine out of service. It needs preventative maintenance without understanding the entire concept of can that engine be pulled out of service today in order to make the fire service still run effectively and efficiently that day. So that's where I see the AI. And I know it was a firefighter story there. Snuck one in.
Right.
I don't know. Beth, Andy, what do you guys think? Carl's here too, by the way.
So I mean, if we think about the ways that things connect with each other and pass information, it's sort of like a handshake, right? And so humans have the ability to shake two hands, right? We only have two hands. Even if we had 8 hands, even if we were octopus people, we would still only be really able to pay attention to a single handshake in sequence. Right. So one of the main things that AI brings to this, and one of the reasons that we're so excited, not only about the future, but like if nothing changed, if we just stayed with today's abilities, it's amazing because it has not only like way more hands than we have for these kinds of connections, it can also pay attention or process simultaneously the information coming in. And again, it's not just attention that it's paying attention. It's not just like, oh, I'm gathering. I can gather it all at the same time. It's analyzing it all at the same time too. And it's analyzing concurrently, which is where that convergence piece that Jimmy talked about really starts to like grow its own legs, right? Like we can imagine what might be possible. But then we play with AI, we engage with it, we test it, we push it, and then we find out, oh, what is really possible? And inevitably, people who are doing that are surprised, delighted, a little freaked out sometimes. But yeah, that's what
Now,
I
Andy,
think is so excited about this.
Andy, you used to work for FitAid or LifeAid. I'm not sure which one the parent company was. And obviously, for those that know, don't, we would call that a healthier alternative to an energy drink. It was very popular. I used to own a CrossFit, so Andy and I have talked about that. FitAid was very popular, still is, I'm sure, in the CrossFit community and for healthy individuals. But obviously, lots going on there, from logistics to products to delivery and shipments and everything else that had to happen above and beyond just the actual product itself and nutrition. From your vantage point, what were you doing when you were there as far as Internet of Things, and how was that working, and how do you see AI changing that today if you were still in that role?
LifeAid itself didn't have any sensor network or advanced Internet of Things implementations. But I think a great example of Internet of Things and how AI can improve things which are massively interconnected, is in logistics. It could also apply in manufacturing. But in logistics, let's just use the example of all of the containers that are moving around the world at every moment. They're already instrumented. So I think there are in-place tracking systems where you can query a system and say, where is this container at this moment? And it's being the Internet of Things component of it is maybe as simple as an RFID tag on that in some computer somewhere knows that this RFID signature on this little tag that's on that particular container, or even down to the level of a box that you have, is passing through this way station in the logistics chain that it's following. Now, if you feed all of that information that's already available, but is really only queryable at this point, or maybe somebody's already implemented AI for it, and you have it all being fed in as soon as the data is available into an AI that's been trained to optimize movement and has the ability to do switching. So I think in order for real optimizations to happen in logistics, there have to be two levels. One is an accurate and real-time sensor network, and an AI that can make decisions about ways to improve the delivery speed and or time in transit, for example, for perishable goods or whatever. By the way, that reminds me that you can also, if you're using consumer packaged goods in logistics, temperature sensing all the way through that is very important. Things get too cold, like we can't ship our aluminum cans with drinks in them if it's too cold, and so we have to stop that, and that changes the whole pattern of our logistics department's decisions about, okay, what can I do this through a special palletized covered pallet approach? How do I move it and get it covered so that they'll stay warm and not freeze? Or do I have to park this one in a warmer area before I try to penetrate that part of the Northeast that has just gone so cold that it's going to freeze all of my cans and explode them? So those are all the kinds of information that have real world value if you're going to work on optimization. But the two things that I was mentioning is, one, you've got to have the sensors. They can be multiple different values that are being sensed, like multiple gauges, to use your term of art there. All of those gauges on all of those objects that are being tracked in the Internet of Things, they have to also be coupled via the AI to something that can actuate. So actuators in the home are pretty obvious. Okay, I can set up a smart home so that I can use AI to know when I walk in the room that it should turn on the lights that this particular person likes. What's the mood setting that I want? Well, that's actuation coupled with sensing and identification. AI can be smart enough to do something more than just turn on the lights when anything moves in there, so that every time the dog comes in, the dog is turning off all the lights. So that, I just wanted to make that point, that you got two sides of it. Last point, there is probably the place that you'll intersect with Internet of Things and AI together is, through smartwatches and through phones that are in effect Internet of Things devices that have sensors built into them. that can track the number of steps you take in a day and so on. And, coupling those with, health applications and healthcare systems eventually will use AI to, evaluate and monitor the collective information that's available from those, with your permission, of course, to make some decisions or give you some alerts about what you ought to do to improve your health. Maybe go for a walk now, or eventually, to the prior point about there being some kind of actuator that's available to the AI to make it an agent that can actually take actions and improve your health. It might, you might have a patch on your sleeve that actually has the ability to, supposing you're a diabetic, to actually, give you a timed release dose of insulin or something like that.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one thing we just bring out, I know you're about to say something, Carl, but the other thing I want to say on that and to what you were saying, Beth, is that cost is a huge factor here, but that cost is coming down drastically. So whereas in the past for Internet of Things, it might not have been cost effective. Let's take airlines, since I just flew last week in Southwest, and they now have a new system where you can track your bag and you can actually check it in online, right? I didn't have to check a bag, but that was an option for me right from the app. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. And I was like, it's getting, closer. Obviously, it's almost like that FedEx. So their whole thing was like, you can now track your bag through its entire process. You can know where it is, blah, blah, blah. Very, very much like a FedEx, it seemed like to me. But my thought to that was, as costs come down considerably for what it would take to create an actual beacon, an Internet of Things, just showing where it is, these things are going to become more and more disposable. And the QR codes or whatever it is that you stick to your bag will in themselves probably become connectable Internet of Things and be trackable, just like you can have an Apple Tag. Right now an Apple Tag is $30-$40, right? Well, it's worth it if you travel a lot, because you may want to know where in the world your bag stopped moving along with you, and an Apple Tag can do that for you. It's fairly simple technology, but still at that cost. So I think, as obviously costs have come down, but I do believe costs will come down such to the point that these will be disposable or more disposable, which really, really is going to open up the whole breadth of what's capable, because now you're going to have it so cheap and cost effective that you can tag and monitor most things in the world, and the AI to make, as you said, Andy, the agents moving on their own, maybe initially with human in the loop, maybe eventually they just self-correct, and the humans are made aware of that through reporting. But instead of you watching a report and going, based on these gauges, I need to make X, Y, and Z decisions, what you'll actually be seeing is, oh, okay, yesterday these decisions were made, and I am now the human monitoring that, but it was the AI agents that made the decision yesterday, and I am watching things that have already happened, as opposed to, oh, this is what's going on right now. And as the human, I have to make decisions about the past on what I'm going to do in the future, as opposed to watching monitors that say this already happened. These are the adjustments that are already made, and this is where it's going in the future, that kind of thing. So anyway, go ahead, Carl.
Do you think, I know we've been crapping on, well, maybe not crapping, but like those humane and things that like wearable devices that are AI. If all this stuff actually, what we're talking about is connected together, then it would kind of make sense to have that kind of always on thing with you.
Right.
And I don't know if that's your phone or it's another device that's kind of like, I don't know if it's something that keeps more of your personal data connected to you, where the interaction, I think I'm going beyond where, like, you got the retinal scans and so on, but I can't remember what movie this was, but wherever you go, you're being served very personalized ads as you walk, whether it's holograms or whether the TV or whatever it is. So it's super, super personalized based on based on the artificial intelligence from the vendor to yourself, whether it's in store or out of store. So would that mean you need some sort of device that can transmit your data and then connect to those Internet of Things to make it a personalized experience?
I think so. I mean, I feel like Mark Zuckerberg did this years ago. I mean, years ago. I don't want to say maybe 10. 10 seems too long, but I'm going to say 5, 6, something like that. He said, oh, my project for this year is to create, I'm going to code my own smart home. And Carl, at that time, what he was saying is like, oh, everybody, me, my wife, I don't know, he had kids at the time or not, but like, you will have to wear this pin, and this pin identifies you, kind of like the humane thing. And that's how the house knows it's you, kind of going back to what you're saying, Andy. And I feel like we're probably so far past that now because of either the smartwatches or maybe the humane thing. Because if you're going to be already wearing that and it's going to be interacting and you can look at, the screen on your phone or your hand rather, and you could swipe and it's lasers and stuff. I mean, isn't that at the end of the day, an IoT device that that knows where you are and, can help and stuff. And that's all going to come down to the ethics of who is and who isn't okay with that. Who's okay with that data being transmitted for the benefit of you having a much more personalized life experience. And is that something that's even valuable to you to have a much more personalized? Like, do you want to go through life knowing that things are being optimized for you, for your gait, for your whatever, for the way you walk, for the way before you get to the light, it's pacing and knows what it's going to do for you. And the world just seems to kind of fall at your feet and work for you. The cost of that is data and privacy, and that's there's definitely a crossover here between Internet of Things. And just to bring it back maybe to like business, since we talk about business a lot, how do you handle that in a business setting? Okay, you own a company, you have offices, you're not fully remote. You have people coming and going in and out of your offices, and people are swiping badges, and lights are coming on and off in the break room when people aren't there. And these things are already there, and flushable toilets that are, don't just flush without you being there. All these things, right? So we all have all these efficiencies that are built into like the offices, but the future of that, maybe Carl, is the business saying like, we can go a lot farther than that. Now with current AI technology and Internet of Things, we can keep your office life very hyper personalized to you and how you interact and move throughout the office. Or maybe because it knows that there's a meeting that these people are going to be in this conference room, it powers down their desk a little, something like that, to save some energy over there. And maybe because they're moving through and it knows their calendar, it's able to do X, Y, and Z. Anyway, I don't know. I'm just, theorizing, but it seems to me that's where things could go. The company could say, hey, this is a cost saving measure to us as the company, and you're going to get a better personal experience. But at what point does it cross the boundary where somebody says, hey, I feel like this is now an either ethical or an invasion of a privacy type thing where you're collecting too much data on me at the company office?
I think it goes to like the thought I had about like AI avatars, right? So like if the company now owns, I always get a little worried. Actually, I get a lot worried when companies own your data, and they do to an extent, like the ones that you work for. I'm very uncomfortable now that a company not only can control your like that's super personalized, but also then like could turn it around and use it for something that you yourself either kind of gave permission to, or people don't benefit from it, right? So it's like there's a very, very fine line about that. And some companies will exploit that to the max, some companies won't. And and just like we're seeing with AI in general, where a lot of people are still trying to figure their way around it, some people just won't know. It's like, oh, you want this data? Oh, we're just going to use it here, but you can easily use it here. So I'm a little wary to just have any type of company that has any aspect of your stuff that they can turn around and use somewhere else.
Right. And this is going to be an education moment, because what we're talking about is as if that isn't happening now. And I'm not saying that your companies are are spying on you or doing whatever. But if you and I are in a room, our phones are acknowledging that we're in the room together, right? Like that when you're passing by cell towers and things, like there's so much data being collected about us that we don't know and isn't actually being used to make our lives better. So I mean, to a certain extent, like, sure, let's make my personal interests part of the calculation now that isn't part of the calculation. But I do think that as we start to talk about this kind of ability, there will be that like, holy crap. Okay, so like just everybody take a minute, take a breath. We're just going to talk about what exists now that you may not already be aware of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, like you said, the teachable moment. It's the awareness of how interconnected things already are, and with the convergence of this technology, there will be actionable steps, or an increase in the amount of actionable steps based upon that data. And that's where AI really comes into, is taking the information and going to the next step, making that prediction for or that analysis for the next step. Now, I think in most instances, that for a business, that's going to be the focus on how to either train an ideal customer or provide a service to an ideal customer. Like in the example before, is like, oh, I want to be able to sell more oats because this particular user loves my brand of oats, and that kind of thing. On another level, kind of pointing towards what Carl was saying, where, this information, it could be taking data privacy to a point that we're not comfortable, and we're not even at a point where it's a matter of comfortable with this spread of information, because we're unaware, right? As a whole, it is not at the forefront of everyone. Every so often you will see a story, such as someone who does a social experiment about how they jammed up Google Maps because they put a bunch of cell phones in a wagon and walked it around town, and Google Maps recognized that as, oh, that's a traffic spot. So it's like, oh, reroute traffic away from a neighborhood because, oh, there's 300 cell phones in this wagon that they're walking down this neighborhood street, and they're like, oh, we got to reroute because that's a huge traffic
area. I like that.
Yeah. So so there are these highlights out there that bring a little more awareness, but again, we go back to the big thing about learning about AI is having that literacy. AI literacy, media literacy, technology literacy. People just need to be a little more aware in this space. But when it comes to implementation, we've never been at a point where it's so easy now to just multiply upon each technology working in sync with each other to provide a greater efficiency. Like Brian, you were saying about energy efficiency in a building, right? Because AI can determine, okay, there's only traffic between these two floors between 2:05 and 2:06 every single day. So we save 1 minute of power here, and that's thousands of dollars of savings per year. Those kinds of things. So as with all technology, it's going to be a fine balance of the scales.
I want to bring up
one last point that on the sort of the dark side of Internet of Things, they can be exploited. I only vaguely recall, but I think there was a rash of AirTag exploits that people were using AirTags, adding them to somebody's car and tracking them, surreptitiously, and that as Internet of Things devices like AirTags, get smaller, less expensive, and deployable by anyone, including nefarious actors, then you have risks associated with it. So there are big risks associated with having that. But again, one of the benefits of AI would be to train the AI to recognize when there is something that's anomalous and not correct, like and I don't know how to, prevent the exploit of somebody putting an AirTag tracker on my car.
Well,
But
and the problem with that, right? The problem with that isn't that technology hasn't existed for a while. It's that it's consumer technology. You don't have to like mail order the special spy stuff store, right? You can just go down to your Apple store and pick one up. And that's the shift in like, wow, these are available. Brian, are you going to share? I see Greg has had some really interesting things to say.
Yeah, by the way, thank you, Greg, for always coming and hanging out with us. And you always bring a lot of value to the conversation. So we appreciate you. One of the things Greg was mentioning, he was talking about actually the website I have. You can't see, it doesn't say Helium, but this is what he's talking about, the Helium network, this website. But another big change is the fact that the Helium network has reached critical mass with nearly complete coverage in North America. With the LoRa, I don't know if that's how you say it, Internet of Things radio network, this lets sensors communicate from almost anywhere without having direct Wi-Fi or expensive cell coverage. Then he went on to say the profile will probably be an NFT. As a token, you can provide access as you determine to whatever devices you choose, basically security, privacy, sharing permissions that are portable, so that as you encounter various IoT devices, they only have access to what you agree to. Now, thank you, Greg, by the way. I have heard of the Helium network, but Greg, your description was way better than anything I had. If anybody wants to check it out, you can just go to helium.com, which is the website I'm showing on the screen. You can see they have close to 1 million hotspots. And then they sort of have like mining and tokens. So basically I can use my home, like if I go to mine here, I can basically turn my home computer or PC or whatever into essentially a network connection. It's an open source type solution here, but very, very interesting and definitely worth, researching more. So thanks, Greg. I appreciate you for, bringing this up to us. But that's helium.com. if you want to learn more about what Greg was telling us about, which is very exciting.
And to jump off of what Greg was talking about, the profile or a person's profile might be an NFT. So some of the language, when you do look into this, some of the languages moved away from NFT as their initial implementation, but more about the technology. So you'll hear more terms like DLT or distributed ledger technology, right? And that essentially is talking about blockchain and that provenance idea where everything is a little more tracked and certified, so it's more secure. So the implementation in NFT would basically giving you a particular unique stamp of who you are or what your profile is. So that's the focus of that technology.
As long as it's not a monkey.
Yeah. Well, that's the point I wanted to bring up. It's like, if you're going to search NFT, you're going to hear about monkeys. You're not going to hear about, those kinds of things. But if you look up DLT, that's more the technology that Greg is referencing.
Yeah. And it's so unfortunate because when you talk about the actual technological capabilities of a blockchain, the technological capabilities of an NFT and a smart contract, they are really powerful, but it just got like overshadowed by so many people trying to make bank, scamming the crap out of you, and then just all the crypto leaders just go to prison. So this doesn't help.
It's hard to say that all future mortgages will be written on the blockchain without which is a true statement as far as I'm concerned, but also like it carries all the baggage and weight of all the crypto bros in Miami and all this stuff like that. So which is off the topic of what we're talking about today for sure. Let me see what Greg said real quick. He had one more follow-up comment. IoT will probably be more DAG than blockchain. The NFT is just a contract that is unique and non-fungible, which is what an NFT is, non-fungible token, right? So thank you, Greg, for that clarification on it. Okay, we'll wrap today's up. Like I said, today was just really about, bringing to light, another way that AI is, impacting all our lives. And I think we're so used to the smart homes and our, hey, Echo, turn on my lights, that kind of stuff or whatever, and the Internet of Things. But it really is going to, the next, half decade here, really going to deeply, deeply impact us because we have all these end connections that are already there. And when we overlap the abilities of AI as well as the abilities of being able to talk in natural language to these Internet of Things, and not needing necessarily know how to code or talk to them a specific way, when somebody can just say, show me the XYZ of the 20 gauges I'm watching, you can say that naturally, and the system knows how to, process what you're asking and give you the right information. I think that becomes revolutionary, and it's going to impact all businesses and most of our lives. So we'll wrap it up that tomorrow. We have the news, big news this week. I won't give any of the way, but we definitely have some big news from some big players. Somebody that I was just saying maybe a week or two saying, hey, where are they? Where is this company? I haven't heard anything from them. And bam, they landed with some stuff. So if you don't know what we're talking about, you'll have to wait till tomorrow and come back and listen to the news. And then we'll be back the rest of the week with a lot more AI topics. So that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, everybody else here. And we will see you tomorrow.
Aloha.